Savvy Business Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with our host, Christina Nichman.
Our guest today is Joshua M. Evans. He has worked with hundreds of companies from global firms to small businesses, including Hilton and ReMax. Josh knows engagement leads to happier employees and more profits. Today, he shares his latest book, An Enthusiastic You. Rediscover your passion and energy, tools for success in your daily life. Find out more and get his book today at joshuamevans.com. Hi, Josh. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, you betcha. I mean, you're going to come today to talk about your great wisdom, but also you've written a wonderful book, which I love because I'm very enthusiastic, and it's called Enthusiastic You. You are a speaker and curator. You're an author, sought-after international speaker. You also host a wonderful podcast. Share with the audience a little bit about your background. What brought you into the whole wonderful world of business?
Well, like most things in life, it was a meandering path that got me to the place that I'm at today.
Wow.
I started about 12 years ago. Actually, now it's about 13 years ago. In sales, mostly for technology sales and software sales. And I was in that industry because I was gregarious. It's not because I was smart. It was just because I was outgoing and passionate about what I did and just very, as you said, enthusiastic. And about 10 years into that career, I got into an argument with somebody that I worked with. And I was very excited about this really neat opportunity that we had with a client of ours. And he was very despondent. And so one of my coworkers said, it's just going to be so much work and it's going to be such a hassle. And I just couldn't believe somebody could be so pessimistic when facing an opportunity. And so that night I went home and I had a couple of scotches by myself. And then I decided, you know what? I need to write down the reasons people should be enthusiastic. And I started writing them down, and I still had a full-time 9-to-5 job. And the book slowly grew and grew. And I never meant to write a book. It was really out of mere frustration that I wrote down all these ideas that I had about not only why people should be enthusiastic, but how people can reclaim their enthusiasm. Because you see, everybody is enthusiastic on day one, right? In any job that you have, day one, you're just so excited, right? You can't wait to get there.
Yep.
And then it's day 500 where you begin to get caught up in the minutia and the day-to-day problems and the challenges you're constantly facing, and it becomes mundane and you become complacent. And so I really wanted to visit what makes people so excited at the beginning, and then what is it that shifts, right? Because it's not the job itself that usually shifts. It's the person's perception of the job that shifts. And so that's kind of where the book's genesis was. And it just sat there, all however many tens of thousands of words, it just sat there for a couple of years until by happen chance I ran into a publisher. And we ended up publishing my book. And when it became a bestseller, I quit my job, and I've decided this is my mission in life, is to help people not only reclaim their passion for the work that they do, but to improve companies by helping their employees re-engage. And that's what I do now.
Wow. And this is so important because I work as a consultant too, and I've worked for a number of companies where you'll see people who are there for a long time and they kind of feel this kind of drudgery around work. And this idea that, and I was this person too, let me tell you, Josh, I was this person one time where I just said, I just got to get up that ladder. When I hit VP, that'll be it. I've reached it. I will be happy. And, I wasn't happy. I had lost touch with my heart and my soul and what brought me joy. And it was just climbing up this ladder as quickly as I possibly could and lost sight of why am I even at this company? What brought me joy about this company that I used to be excited to get up on Monday morning and come here? So how do you start with a business and say engage with people to rediscover their enthusiasm?
Well, see, and that's a great question. I think you have to know where you're at.
Yeah.
That's the biggest key. If you don't know where you are currently, you can't figure out where you're trying to go. Any sort of map, if you go to Google Maps or if you go on your phone and try to find a map, if you're ever trying to get to any sort of destination, you have to know where you're starting from. Otherwise, every left turn will be in vain. And so first I work with these organizations. We assess their company, figure out where they are. And every organization, no matter what it is going to have a couple of just superstars that no matter the climate, they're always going to be sprinting forward and excited to be there and really moving the entire needle. But then you're always going to have this bottom 10 to 15% that are really the people that shouldn't be there, that don't want to be there. And the problem is when those people take over, they can really change the entire mood of that middle block of employees. And so the key is to really understand where the power lies within the organization and then what they want to grow out of. And so what are the things that they need to get rid of? What are the things that they need to pursue? And it's really through conversations that it really starts with, and you have to get management on board. You can get anybody excited at a lower level, but unless it's mimicked and it's repeated at the upper echelon at any organization, you're never going to get full change. And so you have to get buy-in from everybody before you really institute any sort of lasting change within an organization.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that too, because when upper management really starts to engage and talk to their employees and really start to pay attention who's happy, who's not, why they're not happy. And I'm guessing, because not everyone listening in is a huge business owner. Some of them might be a business of one, but they're starting to become disengaged from their own business. And maybe it's just they're not where they should be. How do you begin to realize, hey, that I'm not enthusiastic about life, business? Where do you begin to realize, like, where do I get in touch with where I should be? Or what would bring me enthusiasm back into my life?
Well, see, and that's a great question. And earlier, you mentioned how you thought that reaching a certain level of success, right, becoming a VP was going to bring you joy.
Yes.
But what most people don't realize is that joy happens along the journey, right? It's taking joy in the moments, not waiting for some big goal to be met or some huge aspiration to be reached. It's no, joy happens along the way. And we have to choose to make that a reality in our own lives. You can, I mean, some of the people I've talked to that have reached the pinnacle of what other people consider success are very unhappy people. They're very disengaged in what they're doing, and they're kind of going through the motions because they thought this certain goal would bring them success. No, I think it's the happiness and the joy that you derive during that journey that really helps. And so what I would say to an individual is to revisit why they started doing what they're doing. So whatever it is, whatever your idea behind it was, say you have your own company and your goal was to bring, widgets to every man, woman, and child throughout the world.
Yeah.
And because a widget's going to change everybody's life, and they really don't. But if that was your idea starting out, and then 2 years in, your company hasn't grown the way you wanted it to, you're not in even a third of the houses in the world, right? Why don't people want your widgets? And you have this frustration. You're in the grind, right? So you're having to check emails and send out orders and do these little things over and over and over. And it does become a grind. It's easy to feel marginalized or mediocre. So whether you own your own business or you're working in a business, it can easily slip into this stage of mediocrity, right? And complacency that just ruins productivity. And so what I suggest to people first, why just ask yourself, why were you so excited in the first place? Why did you start doing this the first time? Was it just for a paycheck? Well, if it was just for a paycheck, then I don't think you can really make the claim of regaining enthusiasm, because nobody's just enthusiastic about money. It has to be a deeper meaning behind it. But ask yourself, what was that reason? And Cynic calls it the why. I call it meaning. What is the meaning behind the work that you're doing and why you wanted to get into that in the first place? And once you figure that back out, you can kind of look past all the day-to-day nuances and the problems and the irate customers and the things that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. You really have to revisit why you were so excited in the first place.
I love that you went here, Josh, because many years ago, I was on that corporate ladder, as I mentioned, trying to get up to that VP level, thinking that would make my life oh so superior. I would have that wonderful loft in Manhattan somewhere. And it got to the point where I had some health issues, ended up in the hospital at 4 a.m. with chest pains. And it got me thinking and journaling and just reflecting and taking that step back, as you mentioned. What do I really want out of life? What is my great passion? And really, it started with me because I was at a job at the point that I really didn't love. I was getting in touch with what did I love? What did I love doing when I wasn't working? And asking those questions. For me, it was, hanging out with animals, maybe going to the park, talking to people, connecting, being curious. But that all led me asking those questions to doing what I'm doing today and now building Savvy, which has made my life so deep and rich. But like you said, sometimes it's just taking that step back and asking those questions.
When it often is so hard to actually take the time to ask those questions because you get off work and you have to rush home and you have to do dinner. If you have kids, you have to get your kids ready for bed. And it just compiles. And so every single day you jump into the mode of operation for whatever you're trying to do. So you jump into that and you go on to the next thing that you have to do and the next thing you have to do. And we don't realize that we've constructed all of these things and we've taken out the opportunity for us to really reflect. And I think you're right. Reflecting is a huge key to being happy. Because then if you have take the time just to reflect on what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy, then it allows you then to not only earmark the things that you really want to do more of, but it also allows you to kind of scratch off the things that you don't enjoy
Yeah.
and get those out of your life. But you can't do that if you're just running from thing to thing to thing.
Yeah, that is really a good point. That hustle we do, that day-to-day hustle. For me, it was that moment that I ended up in the hospital, and then right after the hospital and finding out that I didn't have a heart attack, thank God, but I had chest pain. On the way to the job I was going to, I started to reflect, is this where I want to continue to go? And it was that taking that step back. I mean, all of us have to either drive to work or take a train or something to get to our job or business. And it was that reflection on the way to work, going inside, say, hey, is this where I want to continue to keep going, or do I want to make a change?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think fear holds a lot of people back too. I think that's one of the biggest things that keeps people from either pursuing their dreams or from really, re-energizing themselves, right? Or re-impassioning themselves. Because it's easy to be despondent. It's easy to be mediocre. It's easy just to kind of do the bare minimum because you can get away with it nowadays.
Yeah.
And so people aren't necessarily called to really derive meaning, and then they wonder why they are in a dead end job that they don't enjoy. It's because they didn't take the time to do it early enough, and they were too fearful to take the steps necessary. And I worry about a lot of people in the world that trade their time now for money, not realizing that that's not really what they're after. They're after joy, and they think money will buy them joy in retirement. And I'm not sure that that's really the way that we should be working. But if we can have people really, I guess, as I said, be engaged and really derive enthusiasm from the work that they're doing, that's what I think is true wealth outside of monetary value.
Yeah, and absolutely. Also for me, it's even no matter what I work in, whether it's consulting or doing the show, it's a connection with people. That often is the relationships in our lives that make it so deep, whether it's our family, our friends, our coworkers, our partners in business. It's really those relationships that matter at the end of the day, not the job even that you're going to.
You're so right, Christina. You're so right. I think that we've worked tirelessly to take emotion out of a lot of the business that we do on a day-to-day basis. And by taking the emotion out of it, it's become soulless. And I'm not saying every big business is soulless. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that in our interactions, we've washed out all of the emotional pieces within the business. And it is the people and the connections that we have are just so valuable. And so everybody that you interact with on a single day, ask yourselves, is your goal to make their day a little bit better or to make their day a little bit worse?
Yeah. Yeah.
And asking yourself that will change the way that you have conversations. It really does. It's phenomenal. I think you're right. The people that we meet really have a lasting impact in our happiness.
Yeah. And it's amazing. You think, and just like you said, sometimes that people will chase the money, the dollar. Well, I'll just finally get that joy when I get enough money in the bank. And for me as a kid, there was one guy as a teenager that my dad met. He was a business partner, and he had built a business with my dad, and then had two other places he worked. He worked probably 16 hours a day, and then he built over like $1.5 million. He had a nice little house and whatever, but he died at like 44. And when I looked at his life, because he invited us over a couple times when he was trying to have fun, but even his fun was kind of like a rat race. I have to have fun for 5 minutes because I got to get back to work. And I looked at his life lived and thought, I wouldn't want that I've lived and worked so hard that I only not even got 5 minutes to enjoy the fruit of my labor. And looking at his life, I thought he chased the dollar, and what did it get him? He didn't get to enjoy and have the joy from all that labor.
Very true. Very true. I mean, as we mentioned right at the beginning, right? Yeah. I think the real joy is derived from the journey, not from the destination.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned complacent. Even if you're doing what you love, it's very easy to get into the grind of everyday activities that you need to do to run a business or go to a job, that you lose fact of why you even started it to begin with. And you become complacent, and hence complacency kind of brings about that mediocrity. And then you're not really enjoying what you love. How do you get back to realizing, okay, I'm taking this for granted. I'm not really being my best self. How do you get back to using your skills and talents to the best of your ability?
That's once again another great question. I mean, that's why you're interviewing people, because you're asking some phenomenal. I'm going to steal some of these questions for my own podcast because you're just really good. No, so that's another great question, as I said. But what I suggest people do is you once again take the time to reflect, but step back for a moment and have people write down 3 sets of things. The first thing what I suggest people do is write down 3 things that you've already accomplished in your life that you're proud of. This isn't for anybody else, so you can brag as much as you want to yourself. But it doesn't even have to be business related. Maybe you ran a marathon. I've never run a marathon, and if I did, I'd be very proud. But whatever you might have accomplished, write down 3 things that you're proud of that you've accomplished. The next thing I have them do is write down 3 things that if everything else just fell away in their life, 3 things that you consider either blessings or 3 things to be grateful for. All right, so maybe it's family, or maybe it's close friends, or maybe it's your health. What are 3 things, if you take the work out of the situation for a moment, take money out of the situation, what are 3 things that you're thankful for? And then the last thing I have people do is write down 3 huge goals that they're pursuing, right? So maybe you want to buy an island in the Bahamas. Maybe you want to buy a ski chalet in Geneva. I don't know. But write down 3 things that you are pursuing, 3 big goals. Maybe you do want to become that VP or a senior VP at that organization. I don't know. But write down 3 goals. And the reason I have people write down these 3 things is, first, knowing that you've accomplished amazing stuff before, it kind of energizes you. It gets you excited. It makes you realize that, wow, I have already achieved some amazing things. I think too often we're just moving forward. We're just looking at the goals that we're trying to reach. And then we're looking at the next, because you never reach the horizon. That's one of the biggest things. We never realize how far we've come if we're walking in a direction, because we're still looking at the horizon, being like, why haven't I gotten to the horizon yet? If we can look back and see the progress, it can make people not only rejuvenated in what they're trying to do, but it can remind you why you were enthusiastic in the first place, and it kind of reignite that passion within you. Then the next thing, it's kind of cool, right?
Absolutely.
To think about it in those terms. And then the next thing, the reason I have people write down 3 things that they're thankful for is because we can't control every aspect of our life, right? And if tomorrow you don't have the work that you're doing, all of a sudden you can't do the work that you're doing, what is something you'd be thankful for? Because you know what? All the day-to-day problems, all the nuances, all the challenges that you face, that minutia that we talked about that gets in the way of us seeing why we're enthusiastic, all those little things can fall to the wayside when you realize you have some really important things to be thankful for. Then the last thing, obviously, the goals. And everybody knows why we put goals out there is because it's the pursuit, right? It's that having something we're going towards. Otherwise, we're being stagnant.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people feel stagnant in their lives. That's where this mediocrity or this complacency comes from, is we reach a plateau, or at least we perceive that we've reached a plateau. And then we're sitting on this plateau and we're like, and it makes it too easy to do the bare minimum then. If you're on a plateau, if you don't see something progressing, it's easy just to be like, I'm going to stop. And so that's why people write down those 3 sets of things, because it's so valuable, and people realize, like, wait a second, no, hold on. I have all these things going on. I have every reason to be passionate about what I'm doing. I've already made this progress. I have all these reasons to just forget about the problems and focus on the solutions. And then these are the huge things that I'm going after. When you kind of have those things in your hand, it makes it a lot harder to kind of pick up other people's rubbish.
Ooh, love this. These are such awesome tips. What I love, I had a coach many years ago who said to me, at the end of each day, we would start the day with 3 top goals that we wanted to complete before the end of the day. At the end of the day, she would follow up with me for accountability's sake and say, okay, so what were your 3 successes? And sometimes it was really hard, because I was like, really? Did I have any successes? But I think in our culture, it's hard, and it's being seen, I don't know with everyone, but at least for me, the idea that it's not good to think good stuff about yourself. You're being a bit too prideful. And it was really hard for me to pull out every day anything I could feel happy about or feel like I did well at that day. So I wanted to say, well, I didn't do this good enough. I was looking or choosing to see only the failures or things I didn't complete as well as I wanted. And she's like, well, let's say that you got started on the sales calls and maybe you got more no's than yeses, but you did it. All right, let's start with that as a win. So it was just trying to change looking at failure as wins and learning instead of failures.
Reframing is a huge tool, I think. You're right. People often want to self-deprecate, or they want to just degrade themselves, even in their own eyes. We'll even do it in private, like, why didn't I do this or that? And we don't look at the positive situations. Reframing is a really, really cool idea. Let me give you an example. I love reframing. It's a phenomenal concept if you really think about it. Mm-hmm. So I have a bayou near my house. Right? I live in Texas, and we're in the Bayou City. We have bayous all over the place, and so occasionally, me and my son will go walking, and we'll see these bayou otters playing in the bayou. It's kind of cute, right? Mm-hmm. But you probably know bayou otters by a different name. I reframed them. I've called them bayou otters. We'll call it rebranded. Okay. I rebranded bayou otters. What the real name is nutria rats.
Oh, really? I thought they were talking about, what do you call those? Oh, gosh. They make...
Beavers?
Beavers. No. That's what I thought you were talking about. Yes, beavers.
No, beavers are cute.
They are.
Right? Nutria rats are not cute. But if I go on a walk with my son and then I come home and I'm like, hey, and I see my wife is like, hey, honey, we just saw some bayou otters. She's like, oh, that's fascinating. Neat. You know, and the positive spin on it is a really neat idea.
Yeah.
And I think in our life, we're always going to run into challenges, and we're always going to run into problems. It's the people that conquer those challenges, right? Or see a way to learn from those opportunities that make the most out of life. I'll give you an example. My first job out of college was door-to-door credit card processing sales. It was horrible.
Wow.
In August in Texas, right? So it's, 102 degrees and 98% humidity. It was ridiculous. And I'm wearing a suit and a tie, going door to door, getting kicked out of places. And so day one, I counted it. I got kicked out of 10 places in a row. I go to the next building, start talking to the business owner. They kick me out. Go to the next guy, kicked out. It was the most amount of rejection I've ever had. And I've been rejected a lot. And then I get to the 11th place and I walk in and we do business together.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, well, it's obviously, some sort of test in persistence or tenacity. That's it. And somehow that became my number. I was like, I need to get 10 no's and somebody's going to give me a yes after this. I just need to get past 10 people that are telling me they don't want to do business. And then I know the next person. And I don't know if it subconsciously made me more confident on every 11th door that I knocked on.
Yeah.
But it became a reality. And literally, it was easier once I realized that I was going to have to go through those trials every day until I was actually able to find somebody that wanted to do business with me. Mm-hmm. Until I realized that when you realize, you're like, oh my goodness, it's so simple. All of us have these challenges. We all have to get our 10 no's before we get our yes. Just get past them quicker. Get to know quicker so you can get on to the yes. And so I realized that I would go in quick and I would ask a couple, if they weren't having a discussion with me, it was easy. Okay, you don't want to do business. I'm leaving. I got 9 more people after you. I got to get no's from 2. And it's funny because after a while you start to realize we all have those little challenges. We all have those things we have to go through. And if you can step outside of your world, right, and look at it for a second, you realize that there's this pattern behind what you're doing. And if you can just get past, like, say you hate responding to furious customers via email, but you have to do it. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? Just get those over with really quick during the day, and then you can focus on the stuff. It's that eat the frog first. Do the things you don't want to do first, so they're not weighing over you. Mm-hmm. And so, I love that idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you also mentioned being grateful and thankful, that's something we take for granted. No matter how bad it's been, and there's been times either in business or in life where things have been really tough, when you can just sit back and say, okay, things are really bad right now, but I have my family or my children, and realize that no matter how bad it is, I have something to be grateful for. And that just helps you realize that not everything sucks. I can move forward. And as you said, I've got 10 no's, but the next one will be a yes. And I like that.
Absolutely.
And I love that you mentioned goals too, because we can set the goals, and when we feel, now this happens a lot when you've reached a goal. I've been working out a year. I've lost 30 pounds, and I've hit a plateau where I'm not yet where I want to be. But it's because this is not when you give up. This is when your body's become accustomed. What can I do to get me past this plateau to even, greater or enhancing where I was? Everyone will go through those plateaus.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's important to realize, because I think when you're in the moment, it's hard to see the moment.
Yes. Yes, and it's easy to say, let's just go back. It's not, let's just go eat that donut. This isn't working anyway. No, but no going backwards. It's the, you're at a plateau, your body's become used to that. What can we do to re-energize this and get back on the wagon and kick it even harder? Yeah, this has been so fascinating. I love that you came to share today. Where can people get Enthusiastic You and find out more about you?
So if they want to find out more about me, they can check out my website. It's joshuamevans.com. And if they want to buy a copy of Enthusiastic You, it's available on Amazon or Barnes & Nobles or any of the book places where you'd buy an actual book.
Well, Joshua, this has been such...
And it's called,
it's
called Enthusiastic You. Yeah.
I love it. And we need to bring more enthusiasm into people's lives. I mean, I see drudgery when I go to the store and the laundromat and just life. And it's like people that just get happy, where we have more to be thankful for than not. And I thank you for bringing that great wisdom today to Savvy Business Radio. Thank you, Joshua, for coming to Savvy Business Radio.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Savvy Business Radio broadcasts worldwide via a large podcast network, celebrating business owners, entrepreneurs, influencers, and successful individuals. Find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest. Call 732-474-7375 or email Christina@savvybusinessradio.com.